Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Gorilla Whale, a Godzilla watch-along podcast. I am your kaiju consultant, Kevin Carpenter.
And I am a ghost, Kayla Knudsen.
Ooh, spooky! And welcome to our special Halloween episode, if our video schedule maths out right.
If it's not Halloween, don't worry about it.
Yes. So, today, we are covering one of the cult classics of the Godzilla franchise, actually. We are covering Godzilla, Mothra and King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All-Out Attack.
You know,
AKA GMK.
could have had a punchier title, but whatever.
Well, it's really funny because the title could have been longer because there's another monster in this movie.
Yeah, I was like, well, that guy popped up and I was like, who is this? He's not in the title. He really is. I feel bad for him. I don't even remember his name because it's not in the title.
How dare you not remember Baragon from the
Baragon, yes.
from the hit movie Frankenstein versus Baragon.
Notably, you didn't make me watch that one.
Correct, but he was also in Destroy All Monsters.
Yes,
he was one of the monsters.
One of the best movies.
He was one of the monsters that was in that movie and didn't do anything, but they put him in there so that way they could have him on the poster.
Yeah, no wonder I didn't remember the name. He did look, I was like, oh, this looks familiar. I probably have seen the image of this monster before. But yes, Baragon.
Yeah, Baragon is weirdly popular in Japan. So Baragon was in 1965's Frankenstein versus Baragon, and then he appeared again in Destroy All Monsters, and then he appeared in this movie.
Okay.
But Baragon is like one of the cuter kaiju,
yes.
So I think that's probably why he has a little bit more popularity.
Sure.
He's also a bit more unique because his thing is like ground burrowing, so we get something different there.
Yes.
And so I really do like Baragon's inclusion in this movie.
So he's like Boba Fett in that he doesn't really do anything, and he's not really in the movie that much, but he looks interesting and thus has an outsized popularity.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, by the way, this movie, let me get into the historical context. Like, I want to lead up into this fact. So, the last two movies didn't do so well. I mean, Godzilla 2000 had some success, and Godzilla vs. Megaguirus technically made a profit, but critically, they were not well received. So, they're like, okay, we're still in Godzilla a year mode. Godzilla still prints money. It still makes a profit, but let's do something a little different. So we're bringing in some new blood, specifically Shusuke Kaneko, director of the Heisei-era Gamera trilogy. And he's brought in to direct this Godzilla. He also brings in some of his Gamera buddies, special effects director Shinji Higuchi and composer Ko Otani, who also worked on the soundtrack for the video game Shadow of the Colossus.
Okay.
That has nothing to do with anything. I just really like that fact.
I will say this, I really liked the music in this movie.
Oh, the music's so good, and it's because they got the Shadow of the Colossus guy.
Do you play any of it when we do D&D? Because it felt somewhat familiar.
Not any of the GMK soundtrack, but after rewatching this movie, I'm like, I should throw some of this in our D&D campaigns because it's good music. Okay. I have used Godzilla music in the past, though.
Yeah. That's why I was like, maybe.
I think the last thing I did, you all fought a sea monster, and I used I think it was like the Godzilla versus King Ghidorah soundtrack. Yeah. Like specifically the music that plays when they go underwater and they find out that Godzilla didn't get erased by time travel.
Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of King Ghidorah, so Shusuke's got some ideas for a Godzilla movie. So his first idea is that Godzilla fights the Kamakuras from Son of Godzilla. Those are the giant praying mantis monsters. Apparently, they were the favorite kaijus of his son.
Oh, cute.
But Godzilla just fought a giant insect, so gotta move on. He also had another idea of like Godzilla fighting an astronaut that was like mutated by energies. Not Glenn. No, just an astronaut. But Godzilla versus Glenn.
Give me back Glenn. Where is he?
I would watch that, actually. But no, so that idea is also scrapped. So then he comes up with, okay, what if we have like a fantasy script idea? We throw away some kaiju backstories, and instead it's an incredibly evil Godzilla, and then there's 3 ancient guardian monsters that have to fight the evil Godzilla. And so the 3 monsters that he wants to use are Baragon, Varen, and Anguirus.
Anguirus.
Yeah. So there's so many movies where they're like, hey, let's bring in Anguirus. And they're like, no, he's not popular enough. And it's like, well, he's not popular, but Baragon?
Maybe if we used Anguirus more.
Right. So that's the original idea. Let's get some of the lesser known kaijus and bring them back, have them fight against Godzilla. But Megaguirus didn't do so well, so let's use some more recognizable monsters, which is the exact same thing that happened after Biollante. So following that pattern, we're bringing in Mothra and King Ghidorah.
I mean, sure.
And it's like a palette of Mothra and King Ghidorah. They don't have their backstories, but they're there.
Yeah, it's Mothra and King Ghidorah in shape and in name. But yeah, very noticeably, Mothra is not... I mean, Mothra, I think, is most similar in the sense that she is a guardian deity to the island people. And now, once again, she is the guardian deity, just of a different island. King Ghidorah is completely different in the sense that he is no longer an alien.
Yeah,
and also he's protective instead of destructive.
Yeah, this isn't King Ghidorah. This is an ancient guardian creature who isn't hateful, doesn't destroy civilizations, isn't evil. But the thing is that you just look at three-headed dragon and that sells toys. You know? Like a 6-year-old looks at King Ghidorah without any context and wants King Ghidorah toys. So there we go. I will say a story that kept coming up in my research was that the Toho execs were like, hey, we have to swap out Varen and Anguirus for Mothra and King Ghidorah. And then the director supposedly sat still for 15 minutes in silence, debating it in his head. That's
hilarious. He was just like, hold on, let me think about it. 15 minutes later. All right. Like,
just like working it out in his head, like, can he do that?
Not even just let me get back to you, adjourn the meeting, go away, take a walk, consider. No, he did it right then and there. That's hysterical.
Yeah.
Did the other people, I can't imagine, the other people in the room just like, so how was your weekend?
Yeah. Like I said, it was like that was the most repeated thing. It was 15 minutes of silence.
Oh my God. They were just sitting there.
Yeah.
They couldn't even, I guess they had a BlackBerry. They probably were playing Snake on their BlackBerries.
Yeah, exactly.
It's 2000.
Supposedly in like the original idea of the script, the ancient guardian monsters are going to be tied more to the elements, and so one of the things he was thinking about was like, can Mothra be tied to water? And that doesn't really come out that much in the final product.
Yeah,
but it is very funny to have that like inside creative conversation. Can I make this big? Can I make this movie without Varen?
I mean, yeah, because you're just slapping on. It doesn't matter. You're not going with their backstories or anything.
Exactly.
That's funny. I feel like wasn't there a similar situation where we had a guardian? There was another one where he fought a guardian deity.
So we had King Caesar.
Yes,
in
King Caesar.
Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla. Godzilla didn't fight King Caesar. He famously teamed up with him.
Right.
But yeah, King Caesar was a guardian deity. And to an extent, you could count Mothra as a guardian deity when she's connected to her backstory with, the Islanders.
Yeah.
But she doesn't have that. She doesn't even have the twin fairies.
Yeah.
We get a little reference to it, but otherwise this is Amino, Mothra in name only.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because I was like, no, we've done. I mean, yeah, I've already mentioned the Mothra, guardian deity thing, but I was like, no, there was another one, King Caesar. That's right.
Yep. So it is now December 15th, 2001. Gotta get that Godzilla before Christmas. Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All-Out Attack is released. So, anything you want to say before we dive right in?
I knew as soon as this movie started, it was going to be better than the other one.
Hell yeah.
Like, I could just tell right off the bat. I was like, okay, this is better. We are in better hands. This will be a better experience overall than the previous one.
There's also just a lot more interesting stuff happening both during the movie as well as behind the scenes that I'm going to have a lot more to talk about with this movie.
The human story in particular is much better in this one than it has been in the last several ones, I'll say.
Yeah. And I think it's very interesting the direction they take this movie. And I think this is a lot of the decisions they make in this movie is why it's a standout movie in the fandom. So, once again, new continuity. This is the Millennium Era. The exposition here for this movie is given by Admiral Taizo Tachibana, who speaks to a group of Japanese soldiers in the opening scene. So original Godzilla happened, but the JSDF took the credit for the kill. They were like, the JSDF killed Godzilla back in 1954. Mm-hmm. But since then, there have been other giant monsters that have appeared around the planet. So we're in a giant monster normalized throughout, Earth kind of movie. There's also a giant monster that appeared in New York City in 1998. And we have two Japanese soldiers turn to each other, and one of them says, "That attack was Godzilla, right?" To which the other one responds, "That's what all the American experts say, but our guys here have doubts."
That's hilarious.
Shots fired.
Shots fired.
Open the movie. Fuck that Godzilla.
It's very funny. Shots fired, but I also do... That's great, because now the continuity of Godzilla 1999 does kind of exist in this one. And in this one, it's like, yes, the Americans called that Godzilla, but it wasn't really Godzilla. But it's like, of course the Americans called that creature Godzilla in this context. Like, it was a giant lizard. That's a
running theme throughout this movie as well, because Baragon shows up later and everyone starts screaming out, "Is that Godzilla?"
Yeah.
And it's because they don't have context.
Yeah, they don't really know exactly what Godzilla looks like.
Yeah.
Or they're just kind of they're Kleenexifying it. Godzilla is now becoming a term. Godzilla means kaiju.
Yeah.
Godzilla is just a synonym for kaiju. So I think that's interesting that they're doing this running gag on the semantics of the word Godzilla and who it gets to apply to.
See, that's why Godzilla has to return, because he has to contact his lawyers and protect his brand.
Yeah, he has to protect the copyright.
Because if he doesn't do that, then he loses it.
Yeah, and then you got some weird iguana-like creature in New York taking claim to it.
So Taizo receives word about an American nuclear submarine that has disappeared off the coast of Guam. And so submarines are sent out to investigate, because when the nuclear submarine disappears, that's not good. That's a really big problem.
They've been lost before, and it freaks me out.
So they find the wreckage with claw marks, and then those same submarines are attacked by a large dorsal-plated creature. Guess who's back?
Back again.
Godzilla's
back from the...
We also meet Yuri Tachibana, Taizo's daughter. By the way, I usually refer to people by their last names in these summaries, but because we have two characters with the same last name, I'm going to refer to them by their first name. Just want to get that out of the way.
Yeah.
So Yuri is working on a fictional documentary about a monster over in Mount Miyoko. And we have this little scene where she's standing in front of the camera, and then the crew throws a rock at some plants, and she's like, "Oh, was that the creature?" And then the mayor of the town is like, "I thought you guys were filming a real documentary." And she's like, "Yeah, but if we film a Godzilla documentary here, that's going to drive tourism." And then an earthquake happens. And the mayor's like, "Oh, hey, that's actually might be a good idea."
When they initially present it, I was like, oh, a reporter character again. Wonderful. And then one of the crew members throws a rock behind the camera, and she turns and she's all shocked. Her acting is fairly good. So I was like, are they making fun of her? Are they is she pursuing paranormal investigations and everybody else is making fun of her? And then it becomes clear, oh, she's in on it. This is one of those TV shows or movies or specials that you would see on Discovery Channel during certain times of the evening that was exploring cryptids and myths and legends, and is Megalodon real, and the fake documentary that was it was a fictional movie, but it was presented like a real documentary, and I was a little confused about what was and wasn't real, because I thought Discovery Channel was a trusted source for information. So I was a little bit confused as a kid about what wasn't and wasn't real, and I've gotten a lot better about discerning these sort of things. But anyway, I thought it was I thought it was a very fun way in to the filmmaker documentary thing. It felt kind of unique. It felt very in line with, this is the type of thing that people that watch Godzilla movies are also probably familiar with. And yeah, it is also funny. I mean, it's basically like National Enquirer stuff. So it was kind of funny that the mayor was pissed because he's like, "Wait, you're making like an unprestigious, low budget, schlocky sci-fi thing here. I don't want that in my town." And then she's like, "Do you like tourists and their money?" And he's like, "Never mind. Give me tourists and their money." I mean, the Mothman, what Mothman has done for what is it, the Point Pleasant, Point Pleasant, West Virginia, gangbusters probably.
The energy of the scene is weird though, because that whole conversation happens, and that conversation by itself would make sense. But also an earthquake happens while they're mid-conversation.
Yeah.
And it's kind of implied that the earthquake also helped convince the mayor about the tourism.
Yes. That was the part that was weird, was
Yeah.
the timing of the earthquake. I felt like they should have agreed to it and then we do the earthquake. And then they joke like, maybe it's Godzilla. And he's like, yeah, like they're in on it now. That's what, like, that's my note on regard to that scene. Otherwise, I think it's fine.
There's also some real, like, Star Trek, the ship just got hit, like, acting of, like, everyone stepping around during the earthquake and the camera's shaking. And it's like, you guys could probably do that a little better. I mean,
it could have been, but
it's cheesy and fun.
It was charming enough. Here's the thing. Was that effect incredibly cheesy and not the most well done? Yes. However, in contrast to the previous movie, which had some bad effects, this has like good acting, good writing. Like, I'm buying into this story, and thus the over dramatic, kind of cheesy effects are now charming because I'm on this movie's side.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm giving it grace in that regard and buying in with the tone.
Yeah. It's also fascinating, the thought of a fake cryptid documentary crew in a world where giant monsters exist.
Yeah. I mean, we have some weird shit in our world and
True.
we still have fake cryptid documentaries.
But that's the thing with Yuri, because she's like, I could be pursuing real stories. And it's not even like real journalism stories. Like, I could be pursuing real, like, monster stories. Yeah. Like, I want to actually put in effort and rather just go immediately to faking it. And it's presented in this way of, she's like, she wants to create her own stories and she feels held back in her workplace because she's a woman.
Yes, and that is, well, it's interesting because we had a major female character in the previous one who was in the military, and thus they were kind of leaning on that to give her a lot of character, and really her character lacked depth, but not a lot of characters in that movie had any depth to begin with. So, whatever. This time, I definitely felt like there was a much more earnest and honest approach to sexism in the workplace and her trying to make a more of a career, and the general like vibe that she has with all of these guys, and the dynamic that she has with all of the guys in her workplace. It was interesting because it was like, I can see, as a fellow woman, I can see where she's coming from in terms of feeling like maybe she's not getting anywhere or being taken seriously in the larger like media landscape because she is a woman, and so she has to do this kind of B movie, like low budget schlocky stuff because she can't get like a more serious job because she's a woman. Like, that was kind of my take on it. They don't show a ton of they don't necessarily show a ton of her like doing job interviews or trying to pursue it. They kind of just tell you that. However, considering it's 2000, 2001, something like that in Japan, which does have its own sexism and misogyny issues that are similar and also different to American ones. Like, I'm totally 100% good with being like, yeah, she can't get like a more serious, like, you don't need to show me that she is facing sexism in the workplace. I think in this instance, she can say, I'm being held back because I'm a woman and now I'm doing unserious stuff, because I'm like, well, yes, water is wet. Gravity happens. It's one of those accepted truths, I think, in the context of this society, where I don't think we really need to dig too much into it. It is interesting how she has this relationship to her work where she clearly is still proud of what she does, but is conflicted about the fact that it is unserious. And she is defending it to her dad while also saying that she wants to do better stuff. Because he's like, you could do so much more. And she's like, I know. But also, like, you don't even watch what I'm doing now. Like, she has kind of a conflicted and contradictory opinions about it. As somebody that works in the television industry and has worked on projects of varying quality and projects that I have enjoyed working on, some more than others, and my like passion and love for particular projects does not always match the like critical or audience opinion of them, because I have a different perspective since I like worked on it. So I'm not necessarily judging it always by, you know, the quality of the episode or whatever, but so much as I'm judging it on my experience working there. I get it, girl. I get it.
I think there's something interesting because this movie is in conversation with Godzilla 1998 from the beginning.
Yes.
You know, they get that jab at Godzilla 1998, and with that jab, they are putting the gauntlet down like, this is how we are going to present a Godzilla.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also in conversation because Yuri is a different version of Audrey.
Yes.
Because Audrey in 1998, she's a reporter
Mm-hmm.
who feels held back in her workplace by her being a woman.
Yeah,
and
she faces sexual harassment.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so with Audrey, the character arc there, whether it's delivered well or not,
Mhm.
is that you need to be more backstabby and
Yeah.
more ruthless in order to get what you want. And that's presented better in the animated series.
Yeah.
But in this movie, Yuri is shown to be incredibly friendly toward
Yeah.
her crew. And
Her crew also is much better behaved towards her than Audrey's bosses were.
And so the character arc for Yuri really is, if you want to cover the stories that you want, you need to go out there and get them.
Yeah, it's a little bit like maybe you are being denied opportunities because of your gender. However, you cannot simply throw up your hands. You do need to then go out and do it anyway,
Yeah.
prove them wrong, etc. Is it fair? No, but that's going to be the solution because you live in this society. Like that, you cannot just change society. You have to like work within it, and you cannot let it stop you.
Mm-hmm.
It felt a little bit less like the Audrey situation in Godzilla 1998 kind of felt a little like the heavy-handed girl boss, girl power, you know, sort of thing that happens sometimes.
Backstab your ex to get the story.
Yeah, like, and so that was kind of the more common narrative and the more common take on sexism in the workplace and women empowerment, et cetera, you know, and it's also something that is probably very American as a take and as an idea because it is kind of aggressive, and we have a tendency in America to sometimes treat systemic societal issues as individual problems or individual faults rather than something that has a larger, more complex, you know, issue, or rather than being like a larger, more complex and nuanced issue that many people who may or may not be good people or be assholes or whatever could be complicit in or subjected to. Like, it's very clear that Audrey's boss sucks.
Yeah.
His sexism is a part of him being a terrible person, and he's a terrible person. Like, he's sexist because he's a terrible person, not his terrible he's a terrible person, and he's also like, people that are generally like good guys, quote unquote, can also be sexist. Women can also be sexist against other women. Like, it doesn't always equate to like your moral action. Like, you know, it's a bit more complicated than that because it's something that you're raised in.
And speaking of good guys, it's shown that one of Yuri's greatest strengths is her friendly relationship with her advisor, Takeda.
Yeah.
So Takeda, he's a nice guy. You know,
He's got this long, glorious hair.
He's got glasses.
I love him.
Wait, are you?
Wait, no. Who's the guy with the long hair?
No, that's the director.
The director, yes. I loved him. Takeda. Yeah, Takeda is the nerdy guy.
Yeah, Takeda's the nerdy guy. He's got short hair. He's got glasses.
The one that took her home when she was drunk.
Yeah, she gets drunk. Takeda takes her home. Her dad is there. They have this like little awkward thing, but like the dad is clearly grateful that this nice guy brought her home while she was drunk. And it's like, that's a much better dynamic than a lot of the previous movies.
It felt like it felt a little bit more it was nice to do a narrative where a woman felt that she was being held back by her gender, but also still had good relationships with the men in her workplace. And it didn't have to be that she was like being tortured by all of them, you know?
Yeah.
Like that you can, because that can happen. Like women can be held back in their workplace and still have good relationships with their male coworkers. Like that happens in real life too, all of the time, and it's nice to have that narrative for once instead of the everybody hates her narrative.
Yeah, they're really friendly towards each other, and there's more than likely something else there.
Yeah, there's a little bit of competition between the guys, I think, for her affection.
But they don't need the romance to validate
yes.
the friendship and the dynamic, and
yeah.
I think that's really nice.
It just felt very honest and reflective of many people's real life experiences, rather than like a heavy-handed lesson about we're gonna fix sexism, and it's like,
yeah,
it wasn't clunky.
It felt good, and I'm sorry, I'm still reeling. We're recording Megaguirus and this movie back to back, so the Megaguirus discussion is still fresh in our minds.
Yes,
and it's like this blows the whole Kodo Sujimura dynamic out of the water.
Oh yeah, that one just was like, it felt so reliant on tropes without really, and I think that people, sidebar, sometimes I think that people misuse or misunderstand tropes or talk about them in a way that I'm like, everything has tropes, man. But that one felt really reliant on just like, okay, he's the lovable goofy nerd, she's the tsundere military woman. He was a boy, she was a girl. Can I make it any more obvious, et cetera, without like really putting any work into it? But there was a lot of work that was put into these characters and their relationship dynamics, and I felt that, like, and the relationship between her and her dad too felt very believable, very nice, very honest. Like, they loved each other. He thought she could do better in life. She was like, can you please watch my, like, you don't even watch my stuff. Like, you can't say that it's bad if you don't even watch it. Like, I'm struggling in my workplace and with valuing my own work, and you're not helping by also dismissing it. And she got a little bit drunk out with her coworkers and got brought home by one of the guys, and he was like upset about it. And she's like, it wasn't that bad. And he's like, right, like, you're young, it's okay, like, whatever, you know, like.
That was actually something that my wife said while we were watching this, was this is one of the most reasonable Godzilla protagonists that we've ever had, because she has, like, good relationships, she has conversations with these people, and it's like she still has flaws, she still has some, like good clunkiness in the relationship, especially with her dad. Like, there's very clearly, like, some connections that, like, there's some distance between them. But there's also, like, they're still having conversations over the dinner table.
They felt like real people.
They felt like real people.
And I think it's interesting that she got, like, a little too drunk, and her dad was like, you partied too hard. And we have that as, to me, having her, like, party, which you can be a party girl and be incredibly successful, etc. But I think that it plays, and again, this could also be maybe a little bit of Japanese culture seeping in. Possibly, I'm not sure. Get in the comments if you can talk about this. But I feel like her getting a little too drunk and partying or whatever and kind of coming home maybe a bit late, and then also turning around and being like, I'm being held back in my workplace because I'm a woman and I'm not getting the opportunities that I want. And then the lesson being like, well, sometimes you do just have to go out and make your opportunities because the world is not fair. So sometimes break the rules and go make your own. Like, I think that, like, all works well because it's like she's not getting where she wants, but also her ambition is potentially being curbed by, she's not like, it's not like she was up late, like, working on something. She was up late party, like, and again, is she out partying every night? Probably not. We have a limited amount of time to tell this story, so all of these little details just kind of help sell everything.
Exactly. I'm going to get onto the exposition train track now, but I love talking about these characters.
Yeah, like,
they're good characters.
This is already a much better, more well-written movie.
Cool. So, exposition train track. So, her friend Takeda, he's the one that literally brings in the book, like, hey, you know, there's this prophecy about 3 ancient guardian monsters that will appear to defend Japan as they did in the ancient times when a great calamity comes to Japan. And we see little drawings of Mothra, King Ghidorah, and Baragon. And so, meanwhile, back on Mount Miyoko, where they were doing the fake documentary, we see this biker gang doing biker gang things, breaking shrines and scaring
Oh
old people.
they're causing a little bit of property damage, and we find the mayor of the small town where they were doing the docudrama.
Mhm.
He's like talking about the tourism business that he's totally it's his responsibility, etc. And they even interviewed me, and his wife is like, maybe you'll be a movie star. They're like necking in the car, and then the biker gang comes and just kind of scares them a little.
Mm-hmm.
What was going on with youths in Japan in the 2000s that we had so many youth hooligans running around being like shallow, one-dimensional youth hooligans that were causing all of these problems and whatnot and being punished by the narrative?
I love Japanese biker gangs in like any sort of media. That stuff's great because they're always very stylish, but also you can kind of get an anti-youth sentiment from the director here in this movie. You're right. So the biker gang, they're breaking things, they break a shrine, and then they ride through a tunnel as they're harassing this old guy who's driving a truck, and then the tunnel collapses.
Yeah, there's an earthquake and they all die.
Yeah, there's a giant monster that breaks his head through the wall, and the old man, like everyone wants it to be an earthquake, but the old man in the truck is just like, no, I saw a giant monster, I think it might be Godzilla. So Yuri also catches on to the fact that if everyone's saying this is an earthquake and here's the epicenter, wait a minute, that epicenter is moving.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, oh, wait, I might actually have a story. And every one of her crew is like, yeah, that might be worth investigating, actually. And so once again, it's like, okay, she's held back, but also like the people immediately around her are supportive.
I think the thing is, and again, maybe this could have been a little bit clearer. Maybe I'm giving the movie a little bit more credit, but my understanding was like she's not getting jobs at more prestigious companies because like she's a woman. So she's stuck in this like B movie, low budget, like cheap production thing. But it's like the fortunate thing is that she is stuck with a bunch of people who are like, let's fucking do it. Like, let's go. Because they also are potentially in a similar-ish position in that they can't get better jobs and they want to do better, more interesting things as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they are not, they are facing their own obstacles potentially, or maybe they're just like really into, like maybe some of them are just really into this. We don't get too far into it, but they are not the ones that are like holding her back.
And continuing on the anti-youth streak, we also cut over to a separate set of hooligans who rob a store and then try to drown a dog in a lake
for no reason.
Yeah, they just put the dog in a crate and then they're like, wouldn't it be fun if we went out into this lake and drowned this dog?
It's not like it's like 2 or 3 psychotic kids. It's like a dozen
kids. It's like
a whole party, like a whole big, like, there's like 20 of them. Some of them stay on the beach, and then the other ones are like, let's go out on the boat and drown the dog. And you're just like, what?
Yeah.
What? Like, I could believe, like, an insular group of 2 or 3 teenagers being like, let's be assholes. But it being a large group like that, I'm like, what the fuck do you think teenagers are?
Yeah, there's a bell curve on how many teenagers you can have in one area who are cool with drowning a dog.
Yeah.
And that there's a drop to that curve. But it's okay because larva Mothra comes out of the water and messes up these teens.
But not the dog.
Yes. No, specifically, we see a news report where all the teens were encased in cocoons, but the dog is alive.
Yeah. Again, there's a very strange anti-youth sentiment happening, where it's just like blanket, like teenagers are horrible monsters.
Yeah. So Yuri's on the case, and she goes to investigate, and she finds out that an old man named Izayama was detained by the police for defacing a shrine. It should be noted that she also caught a glimpse of this old man during the original scene where they were filming the fake monster
at the very beginning,
documentary.
we see this old man in the woods, and he's like waving at her. And she looks away, and then he's gone.
Yeah, and she films her interview with this old man in, like, the police station. And Izayama informs Yuri that Godzilla will return and can only be stopped by the 3 guardian monsters. He also drops this bombshell, and this is what sets GMK really apart from the rest of the Godzilla movies. In this movie, Godzilla is not a direct metaphor for nuclear weapons.
No, but he is still connected to World War II.
Yes, he is an amalgamation of the ghosts of the dead from World War II. I mean, he might
specifically the Pacific Theater.
The Pacific Theater, yes. So, and it's not just Japanese soldiers.
I think he calls it the Pacific War.
The Pacific War.
Yeah.
And it's Japanese ghosts, American ghosts, Chinese ghosts, and people who died in Hiroshima, anyone who died during World War II. Godzilla
in the Pacific Theater.
In the Pacific Theater, Godzilla has absorbed their spiritual energy, and they're back and they're pissed. And, he's being interviewed, so he's looking directly at the camera when he says this.
Yeah.
All of these ghosts are back because we, the Japanese, forgot about the horrors of World War II.
It's like specific. It's not just like the horrors of war. It's like because of what Japan did.
Yes.
Because Japan also did a ton of terrible things in World War II. Like, as much as the civilians of Nagasaki and Hiroshima did not deserve to have atomic bombs dropped on them, the military of Japan committed a lot of heinous crimes against their enemies. And I thought it was fascinating that they decided to take this angle. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool as fuck. Great. Awesome.
While we're on the subject, I should also note this. So much later, there was a screening of GMK, like pretty recent to the present day, actually. And Takashi Yamazaki, who was the director of Godzilla -1, he was at the screening along with the director of GMK. And during that screening in 2023, Yamazaki said to director Shusuke Kaneko, quote, "I had forgotten the contents of GMK for a while, but it seems like I self-consciously thought about it when writing the scenario for -1. Without realizing it, I was under considerable influence," end quote.
Yeah.
So just as Biollante was a direct foundation for Shin Godzilla, this movie was a direct foundation for Godzilla -1, and it shows.
Yeah. I think it's very interesting. And I've said before in previous podcasts that I feel a little icky when they change Godzilla's origin to not be American atom bomb testing in the Pacific, because it feels like it often feels like they are erasing the negative things that America has done in favor of kind of just in favor of trying to like maybe appease American audiences or like appease this like country that has now become an ally. And when America does it, it's especially like when America did it in Godzilla 1998 and they're like, oh no, it's the French's fault instead, like it's the French army's fault instead of our fault, or the French government's fault instead of our government's fault. It was like, that feels really shitty to like take away that blame and to not acknowledge it, because if you don't acknowledge this sort of stuff and you don't remember that this sort of stuff has happened, how do you prevent it from ever happening again, or like making it right, or just, you can't just sweep these kinds of consequences under the rug. And a lot of our current modern day societal ills can be traced to the general population or the people in power kind of wanting to sweep their mistakes, to use a light term for any of it, under the rug and not talk about it and not truly go forward to heal. However, Japan deciding to take Godzilla and make it the fault of Japan so that Japan can acknowledge what it has also, like what they did to other people in the war. And also, I'm sure that it was not easy for Japanese civilians during the war either.
No.
Like the way that they churned through their own population to create empire, to make Godzilla the shadow of their empire instead of the American empire, so that they could deal with their history and work through that and, what's the word I want to use? Have some like catharsis and, whatnot, with regards to that. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I think that's totally fine. They have great. I don't really think that's necessarily erasing American fault or anything. I think that they're allowed to be like, actually, Godzilla was our problem, and now it's coming back to haunt us. Sure. Like, yeah, they made Godzilla. They can do that. I think it'd be a little bit fucked up if America made an American Godzilla movie and made Godzilla Japan's fault coming to hurt America, that feels like that would feel icky.
Or if they had Godzilla swim in formation with the U.S. Navy.
I haven't watched that movie yet, Kevin. I can't speak to it. But, you know, it's like that feels icky because then again, you know, you're kind of like whitewashing like the original origin and what that was talking about and stuff. And it's like at that point, it's like make a different movie, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, I think that they have absolute carte blanche, like, yeah, great, wonderful, good job.
No,
cool.
This is definitely one of the more interesting renditions of Godzilla. Like, if you're going to change the original mythos of Godzilla,
this is the way to do it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's also very interesting that this is one of the more evil incarnations of Godzilla. Like,
and I think it's interesting also that this is less sci-fi, because if he's a manifestation of all of these ghosts, like, we are full tilt into fantasy.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's ancient guardian monsters, prophecy to save the world from the great threat, which is an amalgam of the vengeful dead. Like, this is fantasy.
And but it's also, it's cool that, like, because we often have in some of these Godzilla movies, there will be a blend of science fiction and fantasy, which I'm all for blending science fiction and fantasy. But it's cool that it's all fantasy, you know, that Godzilla is also like a ghost magic monster, in addition to these like magic guardian deities. Like it feels very cohesive.
Now, I should also bring up, you know, we talked about this in Godzilla versus Destoroyah, but one of the original ideas for the final Heisei movie was a ghost Godzilla. So they didn't do it then, but they're doing it now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is the most evil one of the most evil incarnations of Godzilla, especially because as he's rampaging throughout the movie, he is going out of his way to kill individual humans.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to see that.
This is not just an animal acting like an animal. This is a vengeful being.
Yeah, and we'll go into that a little bit later. Let me get a little bit more exposition out of the way before we get to Godzilla's rampage. So just some quick bullet points. Yuri and Takeda try to tell Admiral Taizo about the Guardian monsters. He doesn't believe the ancient prophecy stuff, but he does believe in Godzilla because he was there in 1954 when Godzilla originally attacked.
Yeah.
And we cut over to a shot of like him as a child running through Tokyo during Godzilla's attack. They have some old movie posters in the background, which is a really nice touch. So so Taizo is directly tied to Godzilla, which I really like.
Yeah.
We also cut over to the Oekigahara Forest, which is also known as the Suicide Forest, and we see
I was like,
it's
that place, is it? Okay.
It's that place, yeah. And then we see a businessman try to hang himself with his own tie, and then the earth gives way underneath him, and he falls into a cave that has the frozen body of King Ghidorah. So shrine, King Ghidorah, but we're seeing that you need to deface the shrine to wake the monster, and he only tipped over the shrine, so King Ghidorah isn't awake yet. Those are sort of the rules that we're establishing here with the ancient guardians.
We love consistent rules.
Well, we'll get into that later.
Yeah.
So this shocks the suicide right out of the guy. He tries to tell the police, and of course they don't believe him. So once again, in a world where giant monsters exist, people are like, okay, but we're not believing you about these giant monsters. We know Godzilla's real, but three-headed dragons? Ugh.
I wonder how many false alarms people have set. I mean, we get people that call in about suspicious persons, and it's just some guy. So I imagine that there are false kaiju sightings in this world. Oh,
you see like a really big bear, and it's like, oh god, it's Bear-agon.
I mean, we already have people call in for paranormal and UFO stuff, and the general consensus is that stuff doesn't exist or whatever. I mean, people are split, you know, but the general response by most authorities, if you're like, I saw a monster in the woods, they're like, did you? Or were you like high?
Yeah.
You know? So I think it's kind of funny that still could theoretically be happening in a world where there are giant monsters.
So now we're going to talk about Godzilla's rampage. So Godzilla's here. His design, by the way, not only does he have like gray eyes, like they're not entirely white, and apparently that was because they didn't want to be perceived as like saying that blind people are evil. That was a little behind the scenes thing that I picked up. So he has like little like cataract gray eyes, but also like his face is like super toothy and kind of in an evil smile.
Yeah.
Like, this Godzilla looks sinister.
He looks menacing.
And so he emerges and he causes massive destruction. The movie makes a point of emphasizing the human casualties from the rampage, because we've seen a lot of movies where Godzilla is, an animal moving through a city. He'll destroy buildings. He'll crack streets. Occasionally, he'll pick up a train. But for the most part, we don't really emphasize like Godzilla stomping on a human.
Yeah.
I think the closest we've come to that is like the Return of Godzilla. But this movie, like some highlights, he crushes a house with his foot while a man is using his bathroom.
Yeah.
So he's like midstream dead. He passes by a hospital. There's a girl with a broken leg, and she looks outside the window and she sees Godzilla and she starts freaking out. And then Godzilla passes by and she's like, oh. And then his tail comes out of nowhere and destroys the building.
It's vindictive.
Yes.
It's vicious and brutal.
He also looks down at some civilians, not even soldiers, civilians just trying to run away from him. And then he atomic blasts them point blank. And it's big enough that it creates this huge smoke cloud that like a bunch of
mushroom cloud.
A mushroom cloud that a bunch of school children look outside and they're like, was that an atom bomb?
Yeah.
So like direct connection right there. But it's like I said, it's like the movie is emphasizing that Godzilla is killing people.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a little quote on that. Let me scroll down my document. So in an interview with Norman England, who is the author of Behind the Kaiju Curtain, A Journey onto Japan's Biggest Film Sets, director Shusuke Kaneko stated, quote, although recent directors often ignore it, Godzilla's brutality was established in the first film. They would rather the audience sympathize with Godzilla. I feel this is a mistake. Godzilla should kill as many people as possible. He must be feared.
I love this guy.
End quote. I don't agree with him that it was established in the first film, because we talked about how the first film also emphasized that he was like an animal going through the city, but the first film did emphasize brutality.
Yes, I think that I think in this movie, we are meant to read Godzilla as much more malevolent, whereas in the first movie, Godzilla you are to read it with the same, like, does a hurricane give a shit what's in its path?
Yeah.
Like, it is still brutal. That's kind of the reading. However, I do think that the first film, as you said, the first film does linger on and emphasize the human cost of Godzilla, which has been swept under the rug by many, many movies.
Yeah.
So I do think that the first one does establish a base level of violence and brutality to the kaiju fights that gets swept under the rug when we commercialize and blockbusterify and franchiseify it, because you want people to like Godzilla, so he can't be indiscriminately killing people, We've never gotten another shot of a mother holding her kids in a burning city and saying, we will be joining your father in heaven soon. Yeah, we have not gotten that we have not gotten that vibe since the first one until now, when it's like, oh, these people are very, and if it does happen, if it's like people facing down Godzilla and knowing that they're gonna die, blah blah blah, it's like in battle, it's soldiers in battle, so it's honorable and correct, etc. It hasn't been civilians.
Or you have the CEO who
or
built
it's
Japan after the war.
It's people that are like getting what's due to them.
This movie is also in conversation with the Heisei era Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, where Godzilla was shown as an ally of the Imperial Japan soldiers during World War II, and that caused some problems in the real world.
Absolutely. So yeah, it is refreshing to go back to the roots a little bit in regards to Godzilla the monster.
So speaking of monsters, Baragon, he's also doing his own rampage. Everyone was confused because they thought Godzilla killed the bikers. No, that was Baragon. He's been tunneling through
It was an accident.
Yeah, he was tunneling through the earth to find Godzilla because he's one of the ancient monsters that's destined to fight Godzilla. And so he's doing his own rampage. We get a shot of like some tourists on a mountain road, and they see Baragon off in the distance, and they're like, oh my God, a giant monster. He's kind of cute though. Let me take a photo with him in the background.
It was so funny. I loved that gag. Listen, if there's something that people want to do when they see something weird or out of the ordinary, it's take a picture.
Yeah. And they emphasize that Baragon looks kind of cute, which, like I said, I think it's part of his popularity in Japan.
Even if he didn't, it would make a lot of sense for them to take a picture because, I mean, listeners, we are recording this a few days after September 11th, and thus images from September 11th have circulated on the internet, and there's a lot of pictures of people posing in front of the towers, like on ferries or whatever, or people posing in front of the television, because humans have this instinct to record stuff and to insert themselves into, like, to take a picture of themselves during this historic event with this, terrible thing happening, like, in the background. Like, people just want to do that because it's some strange human instinct to record the moment when something big is happening, whether it's something that is good or bad. So they didn't even need him to be cute, but it also was a good acknowledgement of his popularity because he is cute. I don't know. It was a fun moment. It made a lot of sense to me.
And then Godzilla appears over the mountainside and sees some tourists, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to do a rock slide." And he just kills them.
So sorry.
So Baragon also breaks down a prison where the old man that talked about the prophecy was in. So the old man breaks out because a Baragon jailbreak. It happens.
Sure.
And then we have Baragon meeting with Godzilla, and the two fight. We get some really cool miniature work, by the way, because there's like a shot of them like about to fight by the mountainside. We see some like remote control helicopters like flying around them. It's really cool.
Yeah, the effects were much more well done in this film.
And Yuri and Takeda are also there. Yuri's on the case. She wants to document this, so she is filming the Baragon Godzilla fight. And Baragon does his best. Baragon does his earth burrowing. He tries to use his speed to outmaneuver Godzilla, but GMK Godzilla is a force of nature. He slams Baragon against a cliff face. Baragon tries to climb up the cliff to escape, and Godzilla just keeps blasting him with his atomic breaths like multiple times until Baragon just explodes.
Yeah, there's no recharge, or rather, if there is, he can expend a lot more atomic blasts before he has to recharge. It's brutal.
This is a depiction of Godzilla where he has one of his more powerful atomic breaths, and it shows. By the way, some Baragon facts real quick. So Baragon is played by Rei Oda, who is the first woman to play a kaiju in the Godzilla franchise.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
This movie is so feminist, guys.
I know, right? Yeah, the Baragon suit was small, so they got a woman so that way they could fit the Baragon suit.
Sure.
But also, just a little Godzilla fandom fact, there's a behind-the-scenes clip of her acting in the Baragon suit, and occasionally she would, like, give an audible, like, rah! Like, while she was filming.
Oh my god.
So that's a popular meme in the Godzilla fandom, is that clip of Baragon going, rah!
That's so funny. That's like Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen making the lightsaber noises during their fight scenes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'll have to show you the clip later. So, Baragon dead. Unfortunate. So, the JSDF tries to defeat Godzilla with jets and tanks, and that doesn't work. And Taizo is asked what originally killed Godzilla, like, hey, we might need that. And he reveals, like, yeah, Godzilla was killed by a scientist with a cool weapon that we can't replicate, and we kind of took credit to reassure the public. We were like, hey, the military took down Godzilla, not, a scientist with a weapon that we can't recreate.
Yeah, so, a chemical weapon that was destroyed after Godzilla was dead and the scientist died and all of his research is gone.
Yeah, we did some historical revisionism. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite us in the form of a giant ghost.
Whoops-a-doodles. Which, it's interesting that this is... I guess that means that the original Godzilla was created by atom bomb testing from the United States in the Pacific, and then it rampaged against Japan. But now, because Japan has not fully, healed or acknowledged what happened in World War II, the ghost is manifesting as an image of Godzilla to attack them again. So it's like, that's why it's like we get to have our cake and eat it too, in the sense that the original Godzilla still exists in this movie, but now we are also talking about a different empire's crimes.
Yeah.
So that's part of also why it really works.
Yeah, it's kind of implied that the ghosts of the war dead helped Godzilla regenerate after being killed by the Oxygen Destroyer, which I think is also a cool take.
Sure.
It's not the Godzilla raids again hand wave of like there was also another Godzilla.
Yeah, they're like puppeting its corpse or something, you know.
So we're kind of to a bunch of different places now. There's a bunch of stuff that we have to set up. Yuri is following Godzilla on a bike and reporting his rampage. She's in full journalism mode, and her crew is very supportive of her. The JSDF are gathering battleships to fight Godzilla. The old man who got Baragon broken out of prison goes to the King Ghidorah shrine to deface the shrine and wake up the dragon. And also, Mothra awakes from her cocoon, and she emerges in moth form.
And she's beautiful.
And she's beautiful. A Mothra movie where we get her in her moth form. How about that?
Oh my god, she's beautiful.
We also get a scene of like Mothra flying over a cityscape.
Yeah,
and
it was really good.
We cut over to some twin girls who look up at her, and that's kind of like a wink reference, like, hey, we've erased Mothra's entire backstory, but we're gonna give a nod to like twins being relevant to Mothra.
I mean, is it like kind of on the one hand, now when we talk about, you know, erasing the original context of these kaiju, on the one hand, Mothra is very much the guardian deity of like a native population, like an indigenous population on their island that had been harassed by imperial forces. Japan has a history of being not so great to indigenous populations in its area. I mean, you know, that tends to happen with a lot of imperial powers. Not great. So
God, I can't wait for Mothra -1. Please give us Mothra -1.
Oh my God, yes. So, you know, making Mothra now like a guardian deity of Japan does feel a little sticky in that regard. Mm-hmm. However, and they note this like later on in the movie. We're jumping a little bit ahead, but when they talk about these guardian deities being guardians of Japan, they specifically say it's not guardians of Japan, the state. They are guardians of the mountains, the river, the homeland as this place where people live, rather than this state that has military economic power and exerts influence for good or for ill. You know, it's about the people and about the nature, the land, etc., which I think is an interesting distinction to make, because I think that a lot of times people who live or are native to or have grown up in imperial powers get very defensive of their countries when others criticize the bad things that their countries have done, or are saying like the way that this country was built was evil, etc. And it's like, well, what are we supposed to do? Like, this is our home. It happened so long ago, blah, 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 you know. And I think that just kind of nods to the fact that it's a bit of a nuanced conversation, and that we can talk about what it takes to dismantle imperial powers without necessarily further displacing people. Or saying like, hey, your identity doesn't need to be all wrapped up in this current state's existence.
And this is a movie that tweaks all of the monster backstories. We just talked about Godzilla. And these monster backstories have also been tweaked throughout this franchise.
Yes.
You know, Mothra's backstory has been changed. And, you know, King Ghidorah was once a bunch of bat pugs that were left back in time.
Yeah, oh my God.
And then mutated. Anyway. So I think Mothra being changed into a greater guardian deity for Japan rather than the specifics of this island and the Shobijin twin fairies and all that, that's fine, because it's still, it's her core idea. King Ghidorah being changed into a guardian deity is like, okay, so that's not King Ghidorah, but whatever.
Yeah, with Mothra, it felt like they expanded from being the guardian deity of this particular island and its people to being the guardian deity of like this like just larger area. And again, they went back and emphasized like it's the rivers and the lakes and the mountains, you know, and the people, not the state, etc. So I feel like it's like working a bit more.
honestly, the King Ghidorah and Godzilla versus King Ghidorah was more accurate to the King Ghidorah mythos, because King Ghidorah loves being mind controlled by aliens.
I know. I just felt like it was important to acknowledge since Godzilla is all about dealing with imperial power, it just felt important to acknowledge that they did change Mothra's from being guardian deity kind of against Japanese imperial power to now protecting Japan, but they also noted that it's kind of a little bit more complicated, and she's not protecting the empire of Japan, she's protecting the land and the people.
Yeah, if they showed up during samurai times, they wouldn't be siding with certain factions or anything like that.
It's different.
Yeah. We're now in the monster fights. Mothra shows up, and instead of using like poison powder like she did in previous movies, she now has like stingers that she shoots at Godzilla.
Sure, cool.
I remember watching this being like, oh, that's the first time for that.
Yeah.
And Godzilla fires his atomic breath and misses Mothra and hits a tower that are full of soldiers. And there's one soldier who's like, oh, God, my friends were up there.
Yeah. So in Godzilla's mind, did he miss?
Yeah. Like Mothra is not trying to control the casualties either. It's so funny that it's like we have to emphasize again, Godzilla, no matter what he does, is killing humans.
Yeah. You get the one of the things that, I mean, we're in full blown like modern superhero dynamic here. The guardian deities are interested mostly in defeating, like they're like, we are just going to take down Godzilla, and in doing so we'll save thousands of lives. We're not going out of our way to try and save lives during this fight.
Yeah, they're not Superman saving a squirrel.
Yeah, it's not Superman saving a squirrel.
This is Man of Steel Superman.
This is Man of Steel Superman. He's just going through buildings.
It doesn't matter if the entire city is destroyed as long as we snap Godzilla's neck.
Yes.
So Ghidorah also joins the fight. It's a smaller Ghidorah, and he does bite Godzilla's arms and neck, but Godzilla just kind of returns the favor and bites Ghidorah's neck and slams him into a building and blasts Mothra with his atomic breath. And the monsters are not having a good time against this Godzilla. And then, like, Godzilla goes to finish off Ghidorah, and Mothra, like, blocks the shot and gets, like, shot away by Godzilla's atomic breath, and now she's on fire. Like, they do not have the upper hand here.
It was very much, she's blasting off again.
Yeah.
But instead of it being a Y7 cartoon, she is actively on fire.
And then Godzilla turns toward, like, this fleet of battleships in the harbor and just blows up all of them except for one, which is coincidentally the ship that Yuri's dad Taizo is on.
This is how movies work. The protagonists have plot armor until they don't.
But this is an incredibly destructive Godzilla who is winning this fight.
Yeah.
And there's a point where Mothra, like, flies in and, like, climbs on Godzilla's back, and it's like, oh, hey, Mothra's, like, getting the upper hand here. And then Godzilla turns around and just blasts her again with his atomic breath.
Yeah.
But this time, Mothra blows up into magic dust. And as we know...
she's beautiful.
And she's beautiful. And as we know in these movies, when a kaiju turns into magic dust, that means another kaiju is getting a power-up.
Getting some of that sweet, sweet kaiju cocaine.
Exactly. So it was emphasized earlier in the movie that King Ghidorah is still cooking. I think they actually go out of the way to call him Ghidorah before this point in the movie, like not King Ghidorah.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, he still needs like a few thousand years more before he's like at full strength. But then he absorbs the essence. He gets all golden and CGI.
Yeah, and glowy and stuff.
Yeah, he gets glowy. He gets like a golden force field. He starts getting called King Ghidorah. You know, he's not at like full strength, but he loves that Mothra juice.
He has leveled up.
He's leveled up, yeah. So he flies into the air with this golden force field, and Godzilla blasts him with his atomic breath and doesn't do anything, and then he hits him back with a giant golden ball of energy that blows up like half the city.
Again, they're really, you know, to be fair, I think actually in the quote when they talk about who the guardian deities protect, I said people, but I don't think they actually said people. I think they said the lands, the rivers, the mountains.
Yep.
So the trees will grow back.
So Godzilla flies off from getting hit with the energy blast, and King Ghidorah follows him into the water, and they start fighting underwater. By the way, I saw a behind the scenes shot of like when they shot like specifically this like energy blast, and they used another Godzilla suit like a cheaper one that they used for like promotional material,
Mhm.
specifically because they were about to just like light it on fire and whip it back into the water.
Smart, yeah.
It's really cool though, because it's like, yeah, no, they're still emphasizing like practical effects, miniatures, suits, like all
Yeah.
that, even in these movies in the early 2000s. So Yuri's recording this. Godzilla and King Ghidorah are underwater. Taizo and another soldier, Commander Yutaka Hirose, are on the last remaining ship, and they're like, okay, let's take these submarines. They're not meant for combat, but if we load them with missiles, we can go underwater and maybe we can finish off Godzilla.
Yes, and specifically, they load them up with some missiles that we saw earlier in the movie that have the special ability to like drill through Earth and then explode.
Mm-hmm.
They like tunnel in and then they explode. And they tried to use these to recover the bodies of the bikers from the tunnel collapse.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I do wonder if perhaps that would have just also destroyed their bodies further.
Yeah.
You know? But I could see this having uses in like construction at least, you know.
Yeah.
They needed an excuse to show off that missile. And I'm not too mad about it because they would probably want to rebuild that tunnel anyway. So they're probably more concerned with trying to clear debris or clear off that mountain so that they can rebuild the tunnel. And if they can grab any smudged pieces of people, you know, great. But that kind of collapse, like the bodies might not even, the bodies could be totally pulverized, you know?
And they also specify, like, they've been shooting missiles at Godzilla throughout
Yeah.
this movie, and they haven't worked because this Godzilla is incredibly, incredibly tough.
Yeah.
But they also specify that through the King Ghidorah power-up and all of this combat, they have managed to get exactly one wound
Yes.
on Godzilla's shoulder.
Yeah.
Like, all of this has happened, and they managed to make him slightly bleed.
Yes. And so now the goal is to take those burrowing missiles, the tunneling missiles, and aim it at that wound and see if maybe they could get Godzilla.
Very smog. If they aim for the one scale, maybe they can take him
Yeah.
out. Which I love the emphasis here. It's like all of this has happened, half the city is destroyed, and they managed to kind of nick this Godzilla.
Yeah.
I love that.
I mean, it's an excellent, like, show the stakes, but also show the way you could win. I mean, it's the Death Star. It's the weak point in the Death Star,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
So we get this really cool shot of these submarines coming underwater. We see Godzilla and King Ghidorah fighting underwater. It's actually kind of haunting, honestly, because they're just like floating there and fighting.
Mhm.
And Commander Hirose fires a missile, and we see it, and then Godzilla turns, and the missile hits King Ghidorah and
Oops.
knocks him out. And he's like, ah! And so Godzilla fires his atomic breath, and a stray blast hits the building that Yuri and Takeda are in. Like they climbed onto a building to like record this,
Mhm.
and then the building underneath them like collapses, and Yuri is dangling and about to fall into the water, and Takeda grabs her, and Yuri yells to Takeda, "Let me go or we'll both fall." And Takeda is like, "I'm not letting you go." And in that moment, a piece of shrine that Takeda was holding for some reason falls into the water, and for some reason that supercharges the unconscious King Ghidorah. So that's the second supercharge.
It's a bit contrived, but we'll accept it. You can have one contrived thing, and I think that's the most contrived thing. But it's still like she has this like
we established you break the shrine, monster wakes up.
Yes.
Okay.
and she's hanging on to it.
We didn't really establish that the shrine itself also supercharges the monsters, but if that, I feel like if that was set up, then they would have gotten like a little piece of shrine for each of the monsters.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm being like particular, like, and I will be nitpicky because it still is like, you know, I don't think it's particularly actually nitpicky to harp on this. I think that maybe if we saw something in the book, if they consulted the book in between awakening these monsters,
Yeah.
you know, and like realized that they had collected some evidence or, you know, souvenirs or whatever, and now they could use this, and that's why they had it on them. But then it's like, why isn't she just like kind of chucking it into, you know,
like a quick mention of like a class of priests that would have like these stone amulets or whatever to assist the monsters in dire need, like some sort of symbiotic cooperation between humanity and these monsters, something like that.
Yeah, you know, like they I feel like maybe they could have done something, but however, since that's kind of the most like contrived thing in the movie and a movie that is otherwise like working really well, I'm willing to lend some generosity to that, and grace.
I think it's also interesting for the rhythm of this fight, because we've seen the rhythm of like kaiju fights, they're about to lose, they get supercharged, they immediately win.
Yeah.
And in this movie, it's like we not only do we have multiple kaiju fights, we also have multiple kaiju going down. We have King Ghidorah getting supercharged and gaining the upper hand, and then losing the upper hand, and then getting supercharged again and fighting Godzilla, and still technically doesn't win. Like there's a lot of ups and downs here.
Yeah, it feels like it's working well with, it's like how that happens a little like but it's overall contributing to the rhythm and feel of the movie. Yeah. And it doesn't feel too egregious.
Like if King Ghidorah got the Mothra supercharge and then immediately defeated Godzilla, that would be a much cheaper movie.
It would feel more like a Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah. So Godzilla and King Ghidorah emerge from the water. They continue their fight. King Ghidorah fires his gravity beams. I know that's the official name for them. They're lightning.
It's
but
electricity.
It's electricity, but whatever. Space Godzilla had gravity beams. He floated Godzilla in the air. Anyway.
Yeah.
So King Ghidorah fires his gravity beams and he hits Godzilla several times, but Godzilla absorbs the energy. And I can't even make a joke about that. We've seen throughout the Godzilla franchise he can absorb shit.
Yeah.
And he absorbs the energy and he fires a spiraling mega atomic breath at King Ghidorah and destroys him. So once again, King Ghidorah fights, gets taken down, supercharges, fights Godzilla, gets taken down, supercharges, fights Godzilla, gets taken down.
Yeah, which of course all leads to me being like, okay, it's fine that the shrine, whatever.
It didn't save the day.
Yeah, and it puts a character that we care about like in peril,
Yeah. So then we see the spirits of all three ancient guardian monsters appear.
Ghost.
And then those spirits fly into Godzilla, and Godzilla sinks into the sea because apparently ghosts have weight. I mean, we established this is a Godzilla that absorbed all the vengeful dead, so it makes sense that he absorbed the spirits of the ancient guardian monsters, but also it's like detrimental to him, and I think it's interesting.
I think it's about the ghost's motivations here, because if Godzilla in 1954 was created from atomic testing, and he's a monster that is not supposed to exist, and he's in pain, and he's rampaging like an animal, etc., and then he's like killed, then you have all of these vengeful ghosts that were killed in the war machine who want revenge upon Japan, and Godzilla now wants revenge upon Japan because they killed him, and humanity at large because they created him. It makes sense that would line up and would give him power and strength to attack Japan again. However, these are not human ghosts. These are like the guardian deity ghosts are guardian deities. They are godlike kaiju. They're not humans. So perhaps they are more powerful. And then also their goal is to protect this land. Thus, their goal is to eliminate the threat of Godzilla. So when they attack and possess Godzilla, it hurts him.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a matter of like he can take in all of these ghosts no matter what. Like the intention of a ghost is typically pretty important in the mythology of what the ghost can or can't do and how to defeat it or how it is more powerful.
Yeah, and I like it's like it's not the monsters that save the day, because Godzilla is still a threat.
Yes,
but it's like the if we're already establishing ghost rules, then the ancient guardian monsters also having like a ghost final attack makes sense. Sure. And I like that.
Yeah.
So Godzilla is sinking underwater. Taizo is in a submarine underwater, and Godzilla swallows the submarine that's carrying Taizo. By the way, so he does have a conversation with Yuri, his daughter.
They have like a little goodbye conversation.
And I remember thinking when I first watched this movie, like, okay, this is interesting. Mm-hmm. The first movie, we had a scientist who went on a suicide mission to kill Godzilla because this Godzilla was a representation of nuclear energy. And Serizawa was a representation of the scientist that created the atomic bomb facing his creation. Yeah. And so for this movie, where Godzilla is a representation of the horrors of the Pacific Wars, and specifically the horrors that the Japanese Imperial Army wrought during that theater, This is a military man who is going on a suicide mission to face off against this Godzilla.
Yeah.
And
It's also interesting, too, because at one point in the movie, he mentions that he is afraid. Like, he's never faced real combat before because Japan has been in a period of peace since the end of World War II. And he is afraid. He admits it. And the soldier next to him is like, but this is what soldiers do.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, yeah, but he's still afraid. Like, even if it is what soldiers do, he's still afraid. And so you do kind of get that, like, noble warrior trope happening a little here, with him going into battle. I think it's great that he admitted that he was afraid. I always love when characters admit that they're afraid. I think it's so juicy and wonderful. But yeah, I think it does very much dovetail nicely with 1954.
The director stated that he did want someone. He wanted Taizo to be someone who was like an admiral, but also not your typical soldier.
Yeah.
And part of that is he got an actor who was he wasn't an actor. He was a musician.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they got a musician to play Taizo.
Yeah.
But also I think, yeah, it's like those moments where he specifies that he's afraid. It's like he's, and we have like another commander character. I didn't write down his name, but he's entirely there to be the guy who gets angry whenever their plans don't work against Godzilla.
And I also think it's interesting that Taizo is of the age where when we see he was a little boy in 1954, which means he was maybe born just before World War II or just after he would have been born around the time that World War II happened. So he did not participate as a soldier in World War II. He was a civilian.
Well, he would have been born after World War II.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, because he was probably
because World War II ended in like
1945.
the 40s.
Yeah. It's a little unclear how old he is in 1954.
But they established he was a little kid in 1954.
Yeah. So
he
was probably born right after World War II. So it's not like he's like, I'm an old man at the end of my life and I was a part of the atrocities that the Japanese military committed. And now I am facing down the monster that I made. He inherited this problem. Like, he had nothing to do with World War II. He inherited it, and he still has to face it, which I think, again, is another great, like, just because you did not participate in the terrible things that your country has done in the past does not mean that you don't inherit the fallout of that in some shape or form,
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it's like, it's another and this happens a lot in Godzilla movies where it's another thing where the next generation gets fucked over by the previous generation being shitty and irresponsible.
Yeah. It's amazing how much there is to look into in a Godzilla movie when the human characters are good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing is like all of the commentary that there really is in a Godzilla movie lies in what the fuck the human characters are doing.
Well, okay, not all of it because here's the thing.
The motivation of the Godzilla and what they were like, that's important, but
because Godzilla didn't stand for anything in the previous two movies, except energy infrastructure bad, apparently.
Yeah.
But this movie, they're very specifically like Godzilla is a metaphor for the horrors committed during the Pacific War.
You can't just have Godzilla try and have some sort of motivation. The people need to be a part of it. If the people are dovetailing into this and have motivations and anything to do, something to do, like, yes, now you have a cohesive movie. But you can't have one without the other.
So, I mentioned how I thought, like, oh, this is going to be similar to Zarazawa, where Taizo sacrifices himself to defeat Godzilla. And his submarine gets swallowed, but then he gets this, like he falls unconscious, and then he dreams that Yuri is in the submarine with him. Mm-hmm. And he wakes back up, and he's just like, oh, actually, I have something to live for.
Yeah.
So inside Godzilla, piloting the submarine, he fires the missile at the wound, And as Godzilla comes out of the water and looks toward Yuri and Takeda, who fell into the water but also survived, even though falling that far into I'm stopping myself before I finish that sentence.
Yeah, but who knows exactly how high up they were.
Yeah. But Godzilla looks at the two of them and he's like, oh, hey, two individual humans, time to blow them up. Because that's the Godzilla in this movie.
That's what he does.
We then see the drill missile break out of his wound from the inside.
The inside is softer than the outside.
And his atomic breath comes out through his shoulder wound multiple times.
It's not where it's supposed to go.
It's so sick. It's so sick. And so he sinks into the ocean, and Taizo's submarine comes out of Godzilla, and Godzilla still tries to do one last atomic breath to destroy this submarine because this Godzilla is a vindictive motherfucker.
Yeah.
And instead, the atomic pressure builds up inside him, and he explodes.
Kaboom.
So the day is saved.
Yeah. And Taizo lives.
Taizo lives. I was so surprised that Taizo lives.
I'm very okay with Taizo living because, again, Taizo, while he inherits his country's legacy for good or for ill, he didn't have anything to do with World War II. So I think it's an interesting sort of thing to be like, you can face down the bad legacy of your country and it move forward.
And, we get into conversation about this being a direct inspiration for Godzilla -1, where the main character is a kamikaze pilot.
And he lives.
Spoilers for Godzilla -1.
You've probably seen it.
Probably. So, the day is saved. All the monsters are dead. And we get this really touching scene where, Taizo reunites with Yuri, but also he's like, hey, don't hug me. I have not been cleared for radiation. And he stops her 15, 20 feet away. He's like, I might be super radioactive. I was inside Godzilla. I have not been treated. I am just, don't touch me, but I'm glad that you're alive and you're glad that I'm alive. He very well may die of cancer in 5 to 10 years. I mean, but those 5 to 10 years, he can say, I killed Godzilla. Yeah. So, which I enjoyed the touch of he's radioactive. That was a good little detail I liked that they remembered. I think it's also poetic because it's, we establish in their relationship that they're close but also distant. Mm-hmm. And so it's we now have that physical distance even as they've reunited after this stressful situation. It's a representation of the trauma they have gone through affecting their relationship moving forward potentially. And exactly. I think it's a really nice scene. And it's a good image. It's a striking image in the camera. And we get a little spooky send-off because the old man Isayama, he just disappears. Mm-hmm. And it's revealed that, what do you mean? He's been dead for 50 years and he's no longer in the interview footage. Whoa. Yeah, he was a ghost the whole time, which happy Halloween, everyone. I mean, I think from the beginning I was like, oh, he's a ghost because he keeps popping up in mysterious places. And then it's he was in the jail. How did he get in the jail? He was just in the woods. Yeah. They're not hiding that he's a ghost the whole time. Side note, I remember, they were like, oh, this old man was detained by police because he was desecrating a shrine. And then they go to that shrine in the woods and there's very clearly no buildings or anyone around. And I'm like, who called the police on the old man in the woods? Yeah. Anyway, so just a thought I had while watching this movie. So, yeah. And then we end on a shot, the sea floor. And laying against the sand, surrounded by fish, Godzilla's disembodied heart begins to beat, which is also the final shot of Godzilla -1. Ayo! Ayo! What a good movie! Yeah, what a good movie! I thought this was a good one. I felt it hasn't been a minute since I've seen a good one because we cheated and. A little bit and watched a movie out of order. Oh yeah, let's talk about that real quick. Yeah, so we did recently. Shin Godzilla was in. I think did we talk about this in a previous episode? We did not talk about this in the previous episode. Okay, yeah. So I've seen Shin Godzilla. Finally, I got to see it, guys. It was in theaters in August. So Kevin and I went to go see it because I wanted the opportunity. Well, Emma and I went to go see it. Shout out to Emma. Because I wanted to see it on a big screen. So we did jump out of the
seeing every movie in chronological order because extenuating circumstances had Shin Godzilla in theaters.
So
I saw it.
So when we get to the Shin Godzilla episode in the future, it will be Kayla and me from the past.
Yes. Yeah, we watched the movie and then immediately recorded the episode. So in the movies that I have seen recently, I have seen a good one recently.
Mhm.
But before that, it was a minute since there was one that was like really good. So
I also don't remember. Maybe we mentioned it in the Pacific Rim episode, which we also recorded.
we
around
probably
that
mentioned
time.
it in Pacific Rim.
And by the way, the Pacific Rim episode is one of our bonus episodes, which you
Yes.
can access by going to our Ko-fi and throwing us just a few dollars to access our bonus episode playlist, where we go over such movies as the original King Kong, the original Mothra, and now Pacific Rim, and
More.
and more. So if you're interested in that, check out our Ko-fi page. There's a link in the description. Throw us a little bit of money, and you can listen to even more hours of Kayla and I talking about giant monster movies.
Woo.
Kayla was very excited to talk about Pacific Rim,
Yeah.
and I think the ratio of like talking-wise was like 80-20.
Oh yeah, sorry. I really like monopolized that one. Sorry. Sorry, not sorry. I had a lot to say about Pacific Rim.
It was a very fun conversation.
Yeah.
If you want to listen to it, definitely check it out. It's so good.
I wrote I wrote at least one essay on Pacific Rim that was in regards to like trying to get a scholarship of some kind or something. Because it was like, I was applying for a scholarship for school, and I had to talk about, why I was studying what I was studying, and I was like studying film. So justifying studying film it was like, there's always a whole thing.
Mhm.
But I wrote my essay like on Pacific Rim and how meaningful I found that movie and how I wanted to make movies like that movie. So yes, Pacific Rim is very dear to me.
Oh, it's very dear to me too. I love that movie so much. Like I said, I was very excited to talk about it.
You guys should go listen to us talk about it. For $5, you could do so.
Hell yeah. So some last fun facts before we wrap up.
Uh-huh.
So the mystery old man, Isayama, he was played by Hideo Amamoto, who was also the toy maker neighbor in All Monsters Attack.
Nice.
He was also one of the foreign country advisors during Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, where they had like the Shakespearean costumes to denote that they were from a foreign country.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was one of his first roles in the Godzilla franchise. Then he was the toy maker, and now he's the ghost of the old man who knows about the ancient monsters.
I'm glad that he got a nice meaty role in
Yeah.
a better movie than All Monsters Attack.
And then another thing that I found in my research. So the actual real world Japan Special Defense Forces stopped cooperating with Godzilla films around the Heisei era.
Sure.
So according to director Shusuke Kaneko, in an interview with Brett Hominick of Vantage Point Interviews, he stated, quote, "In GMK, there was no self-defense force army. We had to create the army, so actually quite a bit of money was required to do that. In Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah and versus Mothra, the SDF was there. But in the later Mothra remake or just new movie or whatever, the SDF attacked Mothra. And a little girl asked the SDF, "Why did you attack the good monster, Mothra?" So the SDF stopped cooperating with Godzilla films.
That's so funny.
because attacking Mothra put them in a bad light.
That is so funny it's so funny how sensitive militaries can be on what they will and won't cooperate with Hollywood. Because notably, the US military stopped cooperating with Marvel for a time at least, because Marvel wouldn't say that that the real US militaries outranked SHIELD. Like that was allegedly there was jockeying for jurisdiction and position of power in the hierarchy with the fictional government organization SHIELD, and the US military didn't like that SHIELD could like override the Pentagon or something.
And we're going to have a lot to talk about military involvement in Hollywood movies when we get to the first MonsterVerse Godzilla 2014, because there's a lot going on there, but I'll save that for that episode.
Yeah. I think it's actually, speaking of real quick, and I can't remember actually if we talked about this in the Pacific Rim bonus episode, but in Pacific Rim, Guillermo del Toro was uninterested in cooperating with any particular military in making the movie and was not interested in glorifying war and the military because he saw it not as a war movie but as a disaster, like a natural disaster movie. And thus there are no military aircraft or vehicles used except for in the very beginning when they see, like, you fly by and you see the jet fighters attacking the kaiju in San Francisco, you know? Like, that's it. Otherwise, like with the Jaeger program, there is no overt military influence included, and the ranks that they use are not military ranks. It's things like marshal or captain, which are also used outside of, like, the military.
Yeah.
They use ranks that are not, like, sergeant and general. They use different ranks because he didn't want, to... He's like, that's not what this movie is about. That's not what we're doing here. And he didn't want to encroach too closely into any of that.
Yeah. So we talked about Pacific Rim in our bonus episode. We had a great time talking about GMK here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I didn't give it. What's our ratings?
I would say 3.5, maybe 4.
I do 4.5 out of 5.
Okay, yeah.
I think this isn't King Ghidorah, and that rankled me a little bit. And I think the 11th hour, like the shrine thing falls out of his pocket and supercharges King Ghidorah again. It's like, you could have set that up a little bit better. But, it's like, once again, it's like little things that keep this from being like a perfect Godzilla movie for me. But otherwise, like, I fully understand why this one is a cult classic Godzilla movie.
Absolutely. I really like this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just, like I said, I'm a little bit harsher on them. Same nitpicks as you. I would say and again, this is the personal thing between us or whatever, is I get a little bit more bored easily kind of in the kaiju fights. And it like I can stand back and be like, sure, that's like a good, that's a good fight, but for personal reasons, I'm like, I'm getting a little bit bored now, blah, blah, kind of blah, 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 like, let's move it along, et cetera, et cetera. I have not had these issues with like -1 or Shin Godzilla, spoiler alert. I did not get bored at all in either of those movies. So who's to say, like, and I generally like a lot of action movies. So that's kind of, I don't know. Like, I was like, all right, let's move it along kind of a thing. So that would probably be why I'm a little bit harsher on it than you. But in general, I really like this movie and I'd watch it again. Yeah.
I don't think I would recommend this to be anyone's first Godzilla movie.
No.
But I would say if like someone who's already familiar with Godzilla is like, hey, what's like a cool Godzilla movie that like does a little twist or, has like cool monster fights or something like I would still recommend this movie, but in like a list.
Yeah. I would say, oh yeah, I definitely, if you've seen Godzilla 1954, you could watch this one. Yeah. I think you should watch Godzilla 1954 and then watch this one because it exists so much in conversation with it. You don't necessarily had to have seen, because they change Mothra and King Ghidorah in a lot of ways. I don't think you need to have seen those movies to watch this one, but I would encourage people to watch those movies anyway because they are interesting.
Speaking of interesting movies, Kayla, what are we watching next?
Okay. I don't know what we're watching next.
You didn't do your homework?
I don't know. Okay. Oh, this guy again. It's a little bit, I don't look ahead because then you get these natural raw reactions of me being excited or despairing for what's coming next because I don't know, or I have very vague ideas of what's coming next. Okay.
It's the Millennium Era. Each one's different.
Next, we'll be watching Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. Fucking Mechagodzilla.
Not to be confused with Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla or Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla 2. Am
I gonna like this mecha? Okay, whatever. Be sure to watch the Japanese version, not the English dub.
Real quick, before you get into the rest of the preamble, I'll say, if you like Pacific Rim, you might like this one.
Okay, I'm excited now. Expectations have been raised.
They do another twist on Mechagodzilla.
Okay. All right. Full open hearts. Okay. If you liked this podcast, be sure to subscribe, give us a rating, leave a comment, and share with a friend. Follow us on social media. We got the links in the show notes. We also have a Ko-fi. You can support us there and get access to cool bonus content like extra episodes and access to the private Discord, where you can talk with other geeks about Godzilla and all things digital kaiju. Check it out. Gorilla Whale is a production of Digital Kaiju Studios. It is hosted and produced by Kevin Carpenter and Kayla Knutson. Gorilla Whale has no official affiliation with Toho, Legendary, or any other companies associated with the Godzilla franchise. We thank you for watching along with us. Until next time, watch out for kaiju.
Watch out for kaiju.